Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Holy Land Uncovered. As in every week, our weekly tour takes you to glorious sites across the land of Israel. This time, we follow in the footsteps of one of the most iconic figures in the Bible. He's the last of the major judges who led the Israelites and perhaps the first superhero, Samson. Let's have a look. It's one of the most iconic stories in the Old Testament, a symbol of courage and strength. Samson the Great is perhaps the first superhero in history, a judge and a prophet. According to the book of Judges, Samson was born in Tzorah, about 20 kilometers west of Jerusalem, and began to preach in the nearby area known as Eshtaol. Uri, we're standing in the Tzorah lookout, and there's a very interesting backdrop for Samson's appearance in this area. What can you tell us about it?
That's true, and I think one of the great things about the site is how the topography, how the landscape really complements the biblical text. We're standing right next to Tel Tzorah, the ancient town of Tzorah, and it's here that Samson was born. He was actually born a miraculous birth. The Bible tells us that his mother was barren, had no children, and as she was working in the fields, and also there are many, many remains of wine presses and olive presses in this area. She was working in the fields and an angel appeared to her. She didn't know it at the time, but he told her that she was going to be a mother of a child, except that she has to refrain from drinking wine, being a Nazir, avoiding all these things. She didn't believe him at first. She went to call her husband, who was also in this area, and together, once again, the man appeared to them. Or he repeats these instructions to Manoach, and they make a sacrifice to God. That's when they realize that they have encountered an angel. And yes, they now themselves behave in the manner of a Nazir, to refrain from drinking wine, and when the child is born, Samson is born, they don't cut his hair. And he's born in purity. Those are the circumstances of his birth.
One of the stories regards Samson as one of the first superheroes in history. If we refer to Samson as this biblical superhero, as we mentioned before, then what would you say is his superpower?
Well, that's a great question. His superpower is his strength. And it seems that Samson uses his strength to goad at the Philistines, to annoy them, to try to somehow redeem the honor of the Israelites who are under Philistine control at this time. And when we're looking at the landscape, once again, we get a really good visual of what that means. The tribe of Judah is laying out in front of us. These are the mountains of Judah, the Judean mountains. Here we are in the tribe of Dan. Again, we're now back on top of the Tel Tzorah and Eshtaol, which is just beyond the next hill. These are Danite, from the tribe of Dan. Samson's from the time of Dan. When the tribe of Dan moved north, these will become border towns for Judah. And this is a seam area between the Israelites and the Philistines. One of the things that are beautiful about the story is that when we read that he goes down, he can actually see here how he would go down physically. He would go down to Timnah. That's where he meets a girl. He falls in love and he wants to get married. He asks his parents to come with him to see the girl and claim her for marriage. On the way, he meets a lion. So one of his feats of strength is in ripping up that lion like it was a little goat, and then he keeps it a secret. Okay, this line will come back later when he starts again to rid riddles. But it's one of the feats of strength that Samson is known for.
The Bible tells us about Samson and his wives. The most notorious one was Delilah, his third wife who turned against him and gathered the Philistines, his bitter enemy who found his weak point. Ori, we know that Samson's strength came from his hair, but we also know that he had one big weakness, and that's women. And the combination of both, we can say, eventually led to his downfall, right?
That's correct. Samson was supposed to refrain from cutting his hair, but it was as a Nazirite, he was supposed to live a life of purity. And he did. There were 20 good years that he judged Israel. But towards the end of that time, he met Delilah, and he fell in love with her, and she would be the one to reveal his secrets. She was bribed or bought off or pressured into revealing his secret, and at first he didn't want to tell her. But eventually, as the Bible says here in Judges 16:16, and it came to pass when she pestered him daily with her words and pressed him, so that his soul was vexed to death. She really did a number on him, and he gave up his secret. He did. He gave up his secret. She tried 3 times. She failed. But the 4th time, he gave up his secret, and he was arrested.
The Philistines are also the subject of another important biblical story, which occurred here in Beth Shemesh. A story which is also related to a very powerful instrument, the return of the Ark of the Covenant. At what point does the Bible describe to us the arrival of the Ark of the Covenant in this area of Tel Beth Shemesh?
Well, the story of the Ark traveling through the fields of Beth Shemesh is related to the conflict between the Philistines, which hold the lands to our west, and the tribes of Israel, which are here from this line and to the east. And we can even try to imagine it. We're looking down the fields, you can picture it. You can picture the Ark of the Covenant on a cart carried by 2 cows, just traveling along the path, and people lifting up their eyes, and suddenly it's there. The Philistines captured the Ark. It brought harm and curse upon them, and so they released it, they let it go. When it arrived here at Beth Shemesh, it was taken down by the people of Beth Shemesh, but they didn't treat it respectfully enough, and so they ended up sending it further up to Kiryat Yearim. Kiryat Yearim is up here on the hill. Once again, you can see the proximity of all these things.
Today, Tel Beth Shemesh is the main attraction for archaeologists who continue to excavate the land, aiming to unearth more evidence from the biblical era. Dale, tell us a bit about the excavations here on this site. Any evidences of biblical times that you've found in this area?
Most definitely. We have one of the things that the first real biblical thing that we found is a temple that dates to about 1100 BC. And we've uncovered half of it about 9 years ago. And our process right now is to uncover the southern half, and that's the major operation right now. We also have occupation levels from the Iron Age 2, dealing with, there was a room that we found that had a bowl in it that said holy on it, Kodesh. And that was really exciting. The site is described in the Bible as a Levitical site and is connected with the narration of the Ark of the Covenant coming back and all of that. So yeah, there's definitely some significant biblical connections.
And this particular site taking place here behind us, what was it?
Right, the issue we're dealing with right now, other than removing stones, is a stable that dates to the late 9th century BC. And then below that is the temple, and then there's a palace from the late Bronze Age period, dating to the 14th century BC. So there's definitely a stratigraphy that is going on here that we're having to work through.
After Delilah cuts off his hair, Samson is captured by the Philistines. He decides to take his own life with the Philistines, an outstanding scene which is described in the book of Judges. Then Samson reached toward the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood. Bracing himself against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he lived.